Hello everyone, this is Dr. Prashant and welcome back to Public Health Series. In this video, I'll be talking about nutrition and health. So to start with the definition, it is the science of food and its relationship to health. It is concerned primarily with the role of nutrients in body growth, development and maintenance. Coming to classification of foods, based on origin, it can be animal or vegetable origin. Based on composition, it includes proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins and minerals. Based on function, bodybuilding foods that include meat, egg, etc. Energy giving foods like sugars and fats, protective foods like fruits and vegetables. And based on nutritive value, it can be millets, vegetables, nuts, fruits and sugars, etc. So broadly, nutrients are of two types, micro and macronutrients. Under micro, we can see vitamins and minerals, whereas under macro, it includes proteins, fats and carbohydrates. So coming to energy intake proportions, it is 65 to 80% for carbohydrates, 10 to 30 for fats, 7 to 15 for proteins. So we will start with proteins. Proteins are complex organic nitrogenous compounds and they are composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen and sulfur. So they constitute about 20% of the body weight in adult. So basically proteins are made up of small units called as amino acids. So there are two types of amino acids, essential and non-essential. Under non-essential amino acids, we can see arginine and asparaginic acid, whereas under essential amino acids, it includes leucine, isoleucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, valine, tryptophan, and histidine. Now coming to protein source and content, that is protein in grams per 100 grams of dietary source. So in animal source, you can see meat has the highest content of protein and the milk has the least content of protein. So I have given them in high to low, you can just go through them. And in plant sources, soybean has the highest content of protein, whereas fruits has the least content of protein. So in mixed group, we can see still soybean has the highest content of protein and fruits have the least content of protein. And the recommended protein intake is 1 gram protein per kg body weight for an adult. So now coming to fats, fats are usually solid at 20 degrees Celsius and these fats are called as oils if they are liquid at that temperature. So there are three types of fats, simple lipids, compound lipids and derived lipids. So triglycerides are under simple, compound lipids include phospholipids and derived include the cholesterol. And 99% of body fat in the adipose tissue is in the form of triglycerides and 1 kg of adipose tissue is equal to 7700 kilocalories. So when fats undergo hydrolysis, they give fatty acids and glycerol. So there are two types of fatty acids, saturated and unsaturated. Under saturated, we can see lauric acid, palmitic acid and stearic acid. Under unsaturated, there are two types, mono and polyunsaturated. So the examples of mono unsaturated is oleic acid. For polyunsaturated, it is linoleic acid. Now coming to essential fatty acids which cannot be synthesized by humans and can be derived only from food sources. And the important essential fatty acid is linoleic acid. So the main source of linoleic acid is safflower oil, which is around 73%, whereas the least content is present in coconut oil. So I have given them from high to low. You can just go through them for better understanding. And now coming to carbohydrates, which is a main source of energy, where 1 gram of carbohydrates can yield around 4 kilocalories. So there are three sources of carbohydrates, starch, sugars and cellulose. Under starch, we include cereals, roots and tubers. And under sugars, there are two types, mono and disaccharides. Glucose, fructose and galactose are monosaccharides, whereas sucrose, lactose and maltose are disaccharides. And cellulose, we all know, it is the indigestible component of the carbohydrate. Next is glycemic index, which is defined by the area under the 2-hour blood glucose response curve following the ingestion of a fixed portion of test carbohydrate. Usually it's around 50 grams as a proportion. So based on that value, we can classify it into three types. Low glycemic index, which is 55 or less than 55. Medium glycemic index, that is from 56 to 69. High glycemic index, that is 70 or more. So the high glycemic foods are cornflakes, baked potato, white rice, bread, candy bar, etc. And under medium, we can see basmati rice, brown rice and sucrose. And low glycemic index foods are beans, lentils, pasta foods and most of the fruits and vegetables. Now coming to dietary fiber, it is the remnants of the edible part of plants and analogous carbohydrates that are resistant to digestion and absorption in the human small intestine. But whereas in the large intestine, we can see complete or partial fermentation. So the desirable daily intake is 40 grams per 2000 kilocalories. Now coming to the fiber content of common foods, that is in grams per 100 grams of source. So I have given them from high to low. So coming to cereals, wheat has the highest dietary fiber, whereas rice has the least. And in pulses, we can see chickpea has the highest dietary fiber, whereas green gram has the least. And in vegetables, brinjal has the highest dietary fiber, whereas cabbage has the least content. And in roots and tubers, we can see carrot, which has the highest, and potato has the least fiber content. And under green leafy vegetables, amaranth has the highest fiber content. And in fruits, we can see apple has the highest content of fiber, and orange has the least content of fiber. And now coming to total dietary fiber content of mixed source group, chickpea has the highest dietary fiber and followed by wheat, ragi, maize, bajra and lentil. Whereas if you can see the least content is present in orange, tomato, potato and banana. So you need to remember the extremes first, okay? The highest sources which I have highlighted in green color, it's around from 10 to 15, right? And the middle part which is around 4 to 9 or 4 to 9.67, and the least include 1.1 to 4. So if you remember in this way, it will be easy if they are asking you questions to arrange them from high to low. Next is vitamins, which was already explained by Dr. Srijana. So I'll be posting that link in the comment section. You can go through that. And now coming to nutritional values of important food sources. First is cereals, where under whole wheat you can see it has the highest protein content, highest values of thiamine, niacin, riboflavin, minerals and energy. Whereas raw mill rice has the highest content of carbohydrate, and in maize we can see it has the highest content of fat compared to raw mill rice and whole wheat. Now let's see the effect of milling on rice. On the left side you can see raw husked rice, next is raw undermill or home pounded, where 7% polishing are removed, and third is the raw mill rice where 14% polishings are removed. So it's very clear all the values for raw husked rice are high compared to that of raw undermill or raw mill rice. So protein, calcium, phosphorus, iron, vitamin B and niacin is more in raw rice compared to mill rice. Now coming to millets, you can see bajra has the highest content of protein and fat, whereas the carbohydrate content is high in jowar, whereas in ragi you can see the highest value of calcium, that is 344. So similarly coming to energy levels, bajra has the highest energy, that is 361, followed by jowar, and least is present in ragi. So you can just go through them. The green, as I already said, the highest content, and the red is the least content among the three groups. Next is pulses, where we can see soybean has the highest energy, highest protein, highest fat content, and iron, thiamine, and riboflavin. Whereas calcium is present more in horse gram, whereas peas dry has the highest content of niacin. Now coming to fruits, under fresh fruits we can see banana and sitafal has the highest calories, whereas papaya has the least calories, and the calcium content is more in amla, whereas iron is rich in sitafal. And coming to carotene, papaya has the highest content of carotene, and vitamin C is rich in amla. And now coming to dry fruits, almonds have the highest calories, that is around 655, and also the calcium content, and the iron content is more in raisins, and the carotene content is rich in dates along with the vitamin C. Now coming to milk, we can see buffalo milk has the high protein content, high fat content and high calcium, whereas the human milk has the high levels of lactose. When coming to energy levels, buffalo milk still has the highest level of energy compared to other types of milk. And the least content of lactose is present in cow's milk, whereas the goat has the highest content of iron. Now coming to meat, fish and eggs, the protein content is rich in meat, whereas the highest content of fat is present in egg, whereas the highest level of minerals we can see in fish. And now coming to coffee, tea and cocoa, all the values, proteins, fat, carbohydrates and energy is rich in cocoa. Now coming to fat content in nuts from high to low, walnuts followed by almonds, cashews and groundnut. Now coming to reference body weight for adult man and adult woman, for both it is 19 to 39 years of age, but for adult man the weight is 65, for adult woman it is 55 kgs. And the height for adult man is 177 centimeters, and the reference height for adult woman is 162 centimeters. And for both adult man and woman, on each working day, he or she is engaged in 8 hours of occupation, which usually involves moderate activity. And while not at work, he or she spends 8 hours in bed, 4 to 6 hours in sitting and moving, and 2 hours in walking and in active recreation or household activities. And along with these criteria, for adult women, we can see non-pregnant, non-lactating women free from disease and physically fit for active work. Now coming to measurement of energy, 1 kilocalorie is equal to 4.184 kilojoules, or 1 kilojoule is equal to 0.239 kilocalories, and 1000 kilocalories is equal to 4184 kilojoules or 4.18 megajoules. So 1 megajoule will be equal to 239 kilocalories. Next is source of energy. Protein gives around 4 kilocalories per gram, fat it is 9 kilocalories per gram, for carbohydrate it is 4 kilocalories per gram, for dietary fiber it is 2 kilocalories per gram. So fat has the highest source of energy, which is around 9 kilocalories per gram. Now coming to energy requirements of Indians, adult men has the highest energy requirement, whereas the infant has the least energy requirements compared to that of women, men and children. Now coming to recommended dietary allowance of proteins for both male and females, it is around 1 gram of protein per kg per day. So these are recommended dietary allowance for some of the nutrients. You can just go through them. So for iron, if you can see, female has the more requirement compared to that of male as per the recommended dietary allowance. Now coming to protein assessment, which include both protein quality and quantity assessment. Under protein quality assessment, we can see amino acid score, that is nothing but milligrams of amino acid present per gram of test protein divided by mg of same amino acid per gram of reference protein multiplied by 100. Whereas the net protein utilization formula is, in the numerator it is nitrogen retained by the body, whereas in the denominator it is total nitrogen intake multiplied by 100. So 1 gram protein is equal to 6.25 grams of nitrogen. Whereas under protein quantity assessment, we can see protein energy ratio, that is nothing but energy from protein, that is in the numerator, divided by total energy in the diet from other source, that is multiplied by 100. So I have given protein energy levels from high to low in different groups. So the preschool children has the low PE energy compared to that of school children, followed by adolescent boys, girls and sedentary adult men. And lastly, sedentary adult women has the highest protein energy. Okay. Next is protein requirement in grams per kg per day from high to low. So preschool children has the highest requirement, whereas the adult men and women has the least requirement compared to that of other groups. And next is percent of total energy supplied by some foods from high to low. So fish has the highest percent of total energy and tapioca has the least. Now coming to protein energy malnutrition, where the clinical forms are kwashiorkor and marasmus. So the early detection of PEM, that is protein energy malnutrition, is through underweight for age. So basically there are two important classifications. First is Gomez classification, which is based on weight retardation, and the formula is weight of child in the numerator divided by weight of a normal child of the same age multiplied by 100. So if that value lies between 90 and 110, we can call it as normal nutritional status. If it is between 75 and 89, it is first degree, that is mild malnutrition. If it is between 60 and 74, it is second degree or moderate malnutrition. And if it is less than 60, it is third degree or severe malnutrition. And coming to second classification, that is Waterlow's classification, it defines two groups of protein energy malnutrition. In the first group, it is malnutrition with retarded growth. So in which a drop in the height per age ratio points to a chronic condition, that is shortness or stunting. Whereas in second group, malnutrition with a low weight for a normal weight, in which the weight per height ratio is indicative of an acute condition of rapid weight loss or wasting. So basically weight per height percent is equal to, so the numerator will always start with the title, that is weight per height, right? So numerator should be weight of the child divided by weight of a normal child at same height, okay? Because it will take the denominator now. So weight of the child, that will be the numerator, divided by weight of a normal child at same height multiplied by 100. And similarly, height per age percent is equal to, the numerator should start with the title, that is height. Height of the child divided by height of the normal child but same age, that will take the denominator term. So multiplied by 100. And based on these values, height per age or weight per height, we can classify the status into normal, mildly impaired, moderately impaired or severely impaired. So this is how the 2 into 2 table looks. On the left side, you can see weight per height and also the height per age. So if these values are less than mean minus 2 standard deviation, then we can call it as malnutrition. Okay. For example, if it is mean minus 2 ST for H by A, we call it stunted. If it is mean minus 2 ST for weight by height, we call it as wasted. In both cases, if it is mean minus 2 standard deviations, we call it as wasted plus stunted. Okay. And now coming to WHO classification of malnutrition, for well-nourished, it is always more than or equal to minus 2 standard deviations. For moderate malnutrition, it is minus 3 to less than minus 2 ST. For severe malnutrition, it is minus 3 standard deviations for all the scores, weight per age, weight per height and height per age. So based on the indicator, if it is weight per age, we call it as severe undernutrition. If it is weight per height and the value is less than minus 3 standard deviations, we call it as severe wasting. If it is height per age, we call it as severe stunting. Now coming to arm circumference, which is also a measure of malnutrition, if the value of arm circumference is more than 13.5 centimeters, then we call it as satisfactory nutritional status. If it is between 12.5 and 13.5, then there is mild to moderate malnutrition. And if it is less than 12.5 centimeters, there is severe malnutrition. Now coming to ecology of malnutrition, there are different ecological factors. First is conditioning influences, where the infectious diseases are an important conditional factor for malnutrition. For example, diarrhea, intestinal parasites, whooping cough, malaria, TB, etc. Now coming to cultural influences, all the food habits, customs, beliefs, traditions and attitudes, religion, food fads, that is, we all have different personal likes and dislikes, right, for food. Next is cooking practices, child rearing practices. All these come under the cultural influences. Next is socio-economic factors, which include poverty, ignorance, insufficient education related to nutrition, lack of knowledge and awareness, inadequate sanitary environment, large family size, etc. are some of the factors. Now coming to next factor, that is food production. Increased food production will not solve the problem of malnutrition. So whatever problem we see at household level may not be the same at the global level. So it's a problem of uneven distribution between the countries and also within the countries. So it can be reduced if all the food available can be equitably distributed in accordance with the physiological needs. And the last ecological factor is the health and other services, which include nutritional surveillance, nutritional rehabilitation, nutrition supplementation, and health education. Now coming to food hygiene, we will first start with milk hygiene. So where we have one test to detect microorganisms in milk, that is methylene blue reduction test. And now coming to pasteurization, which is to destroy pathogens, there are three methods. Holder method, next is HTST, that is high temperature short time method. And third is UHT method, that is ultra high temperature method. So basically there are three tests of pasteurized milk. One is phosphatase test, second is standard plate count, and third is coliform count. Now coming to meat hygiene, let's see what are the diseases transmitted by eating unwholesome meat. So it includes tapeworm infections and bacterial infections. So one most important thing is the slaughterhouse hygiene to prevent these kind of diseases. So minimum standards have been suggested to slaughterhouses under Model Public Health Act, that is in 1955. Now coming to fish hygiene, where there are three signs of a fresh fish. First is it has to be in a state of stiffness or rigor mortis. Second is bright red gills, and third is clear and prominent eyes. So some of the diseases transmitted through fish are hepatitis A virus in oysters, and others include Salmonella, Clostridium vibrio, etc. Next is egg hygiene, where some of the microorganisms like pathogenic Salmonella can penetrate a cracked shell and enter the egg. And last is fruits and vegetables, which include washing and hygiene practices, along with the minimum standards set by the Model Public Health Act for restaurants and eating at houses. Now coming to foodborne diseases, there are two types: foodborne intoxications and foodborne infections. Under foodborne intoxications, the natural toxins include lathyrism and endemic ascites. Under bacterial toxins, we can see botulism and staphylococcus poisons. Under fungal toxins, we can see aflatoxin, ergot, and fusarium toxins. And under chemical toxins, we can see mercury, which is a heavy metal. Next is oils, petroleum derivatives and solvents, and asbestos, etc. And under foodborne infections, we can see first bacterial, which may lead to typhoid and paratyphoid fever, salmonellosis, staphylococcal, shigellosis, etc. And under viral group, we can see viral hepatitis and gastroenteritis. And under parasites group, which may lead to teniasis, ascariasis, amoebiasis, etc. Now coming to food additives, which are non-nutritious substances which are added intentionally to food, generally in small quantity, to improve its appearance, flavor, texture or storage properties. So there are of two types, first category and second category. Under first category food additives, we can see coloring agents like saffron and turmeric, flavoring agents, that is vanilla essence, sweeteners like saccharin, preservatives which include sodium benzoate, sorbic acid, etc., acidity imparting agents like citric acid and acetic acid. And under second category, we can see contaminants incidental through packing, processing steps, farming practices like insecticides or other environmental conditions. Next is food fortification, which is a process where nutrients are added to foods to maintain or improve the quality of a diet of a group, community, or population. Examples: water fluoridation to prevent dental caries, iodization of salt to decrease the endemic goiter cases, and food fortification with vitamin A and vitamin D. Now coming to food adulteration, which include mixing, substitution, concealing the quality, putting up decomposed foods for sale, misbranding or giving false labels, and addition of toxic. So remember these two acts, okay? Prevention of Food Adulteration Act, that is in 1954, whereas a Model Public Health Act, which have given some guidelines for slaughterhouses and restaurants, it is in 1955. So these are some of the common adulterants used in different foods. So in order to remember this, I always suggest you to go with the basic food materials first, okay? For example, ghee, it's vanaspati. For milk, it is starch, water, extraction of fat. For turmeric, it is lead chromate powder. For dhania powder, you can see cow dung or horse dung. For chili powder, it's brick powder or sawdust. For coffee and tea, you can see the tamarind, okay? For coffee powder, it is tamarind husk. For tea, it is tamarind seeds. And coming to mustard seeds, it is seeds of prickly poppy. And coming to black pepper, you can see the seeds of papaya. So there are two seeds, okay, two types of seeds for adulterants. One is dried seeds of papaya for black pepper, and the other is seeds of prickly poppy for mustard seeds. And coming to ice cream, it's very easy: cellulose, starch, or colors, non-permitted colors. And coming to butter, it is starch, animal fat. So in this way, always start with the basic one first and then try to remember the difficult one. So go through them very briefly and try to remember them by using any shortcuts, because we might be expecting some questions from adulterants every year. So these are some of the nutritional programs and their ministries. You can just go through them. For midday meal program, it is education ministry, but for midday meal scheme, it is human resource development. And similarly, for nutrition programs, it is social welfare ministry. And other important topics in this section are National Nutritional Policy and National Nutritional Programs. So I have made a video on both the topics, so I'll be posting that link in the comment section. You can just go through them. I hope it's helpful, and thank you.